call this meeting to order, December the 15th, 2020. City Council, if you'll stand with me, the mayor will lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
Stand. Lord, we thank you again for our wonderful city tonight as we enter our Christmas season, and we're already in it. We've got just a Christmas prayer for tonight. So, Heavenly Father, we celebrate the birth of your Son, Jesus, remembering the words of the angels on the night of his birth. Peace on earth to all goodwill. Today, as never before, Almighty God, we pray for your loving peace. May peace be guiding force in the hearts of our world leaders. May peace reign in every corner of the globe and in the hearts of every man, woman, and child upon this earth. This Christmas and always, we may embrace your wonderful gifts with courage and conviction. In doing so, we will also be embracing your greatest gift to us, your Son, the Prince of Peace. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Kathy, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Shute.
Here.
Detman.
Present.
Ivy.
Here.
Moran.
Here.
Stewart.
Here.
Carlisle.
Here. If anyone's in the audience that's not on the agenda, if they would like to come up before us, if you see Clerk Haley, she'll get you set up for that, so you can come before us. Mayor's report.
Just a couple things. The parade went off wonderful. We had about half the entries we had, but it was still a pretty good event. Got a lot of compliments from people that said thank you for just being part of Christmas and trying to be at least normal. But I'd like to really thank Ian Bellinger for going forward with it, with all the precautions that he took and all the other issues that they had to deal with, and also the Sebring Avon Park JCs for being the support staff. And so, but it was really neat. And also the lights downtown, again, to the Spiegel family, John and Judy Spiegel, for what they've done to the downtown circle. It's just, it's really kind of neat. It's small town USA. So, but that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman's concerns?
Well, as the liaison to the CRA, I just want to say that the CRA has put out, as of their meeting last night, requests for proposals for the two buildings that they purchased on the circle, and also where the Nancesa used to be. So if anybody has any interest in starting a restaurant or any other kind of business on the circle, and you have the means to do that and a little bit of experience, you need to get with the CRA and formulate a plan, and we'd love to have some more businesses downtown. So, that's it.
No report.
Couple of things.
Okay.
One, if you recall, last meeting I brought up that we need to do some planning meetings starting in January. I've spoken to Scott, and he'll be providing some dates to see what's convenient for everyone. But also, at the same time, I'd like to ask if you have any agenda items, things we want to talk about in the planning. If you forward to Scott, we'll put it on the agenda. And secondly, I echo the mayor of the parade. It was nice, very nice. A lot of people. I was surprised how many people were out there. So it was a good deal. That's it.
Tom?
No report.
Thank you. The mayor always steals the thunder, so we want to start letting him go last.
I'll tell you what, I don't know if you can keep up. So.
Okay. Okay. Okay, we have a consent agenda with an amendment on M. We'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda with the amendment on M as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comments on the consent agenda? Call the board, please.
Detman.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Moran.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Okay, there's no old business. New business A, we have Dan Andrews, the downtown Sebring Farmers Market. Mr. Andrews, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you got on your mind?
Sure. For the record, my name's Dan Andrews. I'm a local business owner and part of a new formed entity called the Sebring Alliance. It's a collective of several small business owners and property owners in downtown, and we're just we have a goal to generate sustainable traffic downtown on a regular basis. And our first initiative is going to be the Sebring Farmers Market, and we're here, or I'm here today to request permission and use of the recently torn down bank sod field, so that we can establish the farmers market there. We're also asking the city to cover the additional insurance needs to cover the city. We're not. We feel strongly that to get this up and operational, the food, the vendors, the growers, they really need to not be challenged with fees right now. So we're going to operate this totally no cost. We don't feel that there's going to be a big outlay of need from the city standpoint, but we would ask, and I think Scott got a quote on the insurance, and it's probably in your packet. So that's a request. Just a little bit about the farmers market. This is going to be it's going to have to be edible products only. We're not going to try to make this a flea market or a craft sale or things like that. It's going to be locally grown and sourced produce, locally created products like coffee and honey and things like that. Basically just an opportunity for local growers, small and large, to come and share their wares, and we think it'll be a great opportunity for exposure for the downtown community, generating traffic, and we're hoping that it'll fit into folks' shopping habits. And so that's why we're asking to do it on Friday and Saturday from January through April. That's really, from what we've been told, that's really the growing season and when the produce is readily available. We feel that Friday kind of fits in with our retired market and where they shop and when they shop, and we feel that Saturday fits in with our working clientele. So we think it's going to be a great opportunity to generate some traffic downtown.
Sounds really good, really good, great idea.
Oh, and I should mention we already have 4 growers lined up, 1 honey and a coffee supplier. So we've got some interest already, and we'll see how it goes.
You talked to any nurseries or that for like plants, ornamental plants, or?
Yeah, and that's obviously something that we can add in. My first goal was the produce side. I've been working with Brian Bone, and he's a what do you call it, a broker for produce. So he works with these different produce vendors and stuff like that. So that's been our initial push, but we really didn't want to do too much effort until we were sure that the city was okay with it happening. So the next couple weeks we'll really put a big push on not just produce but also ornamentals and things like that.
Be a good event.
I've got a couple questions for you.
Yeah.
So what's your long-term plans on this? Are you going to eventually try to charge the vendors or not, or?
In talking with other successful farmers markets around the state, it varies from charging a vendor an annual fee, nominal fee of $25 to with a so an annual fee of $25 to $10 to $15 per spot per week, and there's all different scales. I think my goal is to generate traffic, not revenue, and so I think if we can keep the costs low, we'll keep the providers and the vendors interested. I think if we start building in some type of cost scale to generate revenue, I think we're going to scare some of them off.
Well, I want to
So
tell
I
you,
don't have the intent. If we do move to a fee structure in the future, it'll be nominal.
yeah, okay. I want to tell you, I think it's a great idea. I really hope it's very successful, but I do have a couple of concerns. And one of them is, I guess, the garbage that's going to be generated anytime
Yes, sir.
people come out. And do you have any plans for that, or is that something that the city's going to be responsible for?
Yeah, and I figure that's something that I need to work on. I know from the triathlon that's a big thing that we take care of, and we bring a lot of dumpsters and things down for that. I have not met with Ken to discuss that, and I'm glad you brought it up because it's something that it did slip my mind. But yes, I'll
Okay.
definitely I'll have to talk to Ken about that.
And then my next big concern is they just have laid the sod there.
Yep.
And so I'd like to kind of get an opinion from somebody on how long that needs to root before we can put traffic on it.
Sure.
Uh, You know, we've got 2 weeks before
Duke Energy
January.
feels like you put traffic on it right now, from my understanding. I agree, and I don't know how to answer that. It is, but hey, it's not St. Augustine Floritan, so I know it's a little bit more resilient, but I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if a month's going to be enough time for that to grow in because it's definitely not growing season.
Yeah, they just rolled up some of it today, so
Yeah.
I don't know. But that is one of my concerns, so, you know, I'd like to get an opinion on that before we start putting traffic on it, because the CRA just spent a bunch of money for that.
Sure. And I don't know I don't know how we need to answer that in a timely manner. I mean, we could, if there was not, if it was advisable to stay off the grass, let's say for a month or so into the new year, I guess we could use the parking lot.
Parking, yeah.
You know, and just, you know, we can have some signs made up to push parking to the Civic Center parking lot and things like that. So I guess we could use, that was just resurfaced, so we could, you know, maybe knock off one section of that and use that just for vendors.
Or one part of that has not been resurfaced, you might use that part over by the apartments.
True.
That doesn't have new pavement on.
Right,
To
right.
get
So-
started, until the
so-
grass kicks in at any rate.
Yeah, and David Lydell and I were talking about it the other day, and what we envision is having the vendors on either side of the sod facing in,
Uh-huh.
so that the traffic is kind of walking through the grass, but that meets your question, you know, is it gonna be grown in enough to do that? So,
Right. Maybe we could get
maybe
somebody's
I can commit
opinion on that.
to one of those two options, depending on what they say about the sod.
Okay. All right, and you're gonna be the guy in charge of this?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
just so that we know who to come talk to if there's any questions.
There'll be nothing to talk about,
All right.
But yes, and I've included some of the initial rules that we've outlined, and those are still a little bit of a work in progress. We've kind of stolen those from a couple different multiple farmers markets around the state, and then kind of the application process. Every vendor has to be approved, and we're not going to allow people to show up the day of and set up because we feel that they need to be approved, and we need to know what products they're gonna have out and things like that. So.
Well, it sounds like a great idea, and I hope it's very successful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more comments? Anybody from the audience want to talk about this? If not, I'll entertain, and by the way, I think it's a great idea too.
Thank you.
I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the use of the old Bank of America parking lot for the Sebring Alliance Farmers Market and reimburse the cost of special event insurance with the city listed as additional insured.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Kathy?
Denton.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Frye.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 10B, this is a public hearing, proposed resolution 2020-52 approving conditional use permit for guest dwelling unit at 1406 Hiawatha Avenue. Purpose of this public hearing, the city council is considering a resolution which if passed will allow a guest dwelling unit as a conditional use for the property located at 1406 Hiawatha. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive citizens' input. Following the public hearing, council will consider resolution 2020-52 granting or denying the conditional use permit. The planning and zoning board, following the public hearing on 12/8/20, passed a motion recommending approval. Ms. Torres.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Brenda Torres with the Central Florida Regional Planning Council, and I'll be giving a brief overview of the proposal. So the request is for a conditional use permit located at 1406 Hiawatha Avenue in Sebring. And the, conditional use permit is for, a 673 square foot, gas dwelling unit and accessory to a single family home. I have the, aerial photo map for you to see, and, it is highlighted in yellow, and the future land use on the property is medium density residential with a R1A single family, the residential zoning. The applicant, has provided a site plan. This was heard at the P and Z, meeting, and they did provide a recommendation of approval. And, the site plan was submitted, after the meeting, but it does meet all the setbacks for that zoning and the requirements for a gas dwelling unit. After reviewing the application, we do have 3 conditions for approval, and those are, prior to permitting, the applicant must confirm with the city per section 26.221 that the gross floor area of the accessory gas dwelling unit shall not exceed 50% of the principal building floor area, and the building footprint of the accessory gas dwelling unit shall not exceed 40% of the building footprint of the, principal dwelling. And, the reason for this is that, either way, the applicant is, less than the 800 required. It's just the city would have to decide which, calculations they wanna use for the 50 and the 40%, but either way, he is under that. And 2 is to provide an affidavit and covenant consistent with the requirements of section 26.221 of the code, and then the accessory gas dwelling cannot be served by a separate meter and must be connected to the principal building's water and sewer. And, the applicant is here if, any of you have any questions as well as tonight.
Yeah.
We changed it once the site plan was submitted. Because, we did the calculations and he meets on the 40 and the 50. And so the limit would be 800.
It looks like it, as long as it's 50% and 40, then
Yeah, so we did the math, and, he was allowed over 800, but then the quota limits it at 800, so either way, we changed the first condition so that we don't limit him to the 647 that was previously put in the P and Z packet.
for the board's benefit, one of the things you have heard is that it is limited to 672 square feet. And what was presented to the Planning and Zoning Board was 647 square feet. We believe both, the higher number would be permissible, so the code requires that it not be too big relative to the main house. So we're throwing these numbers around, and it's just to make sure that the proposed use is not going to exceed what the code allows for.
Okay.
And I believe the applicant is in agreement, and they understand.
Are there any comments from the neighbors at all?
No, mailings were sent out and signs were posted, and nobody showed up to the P and Z board or to provide comment. And no letters or anything were received.
And what is this building gonna be used for? What, I know it's an apartment, but,
The applicant
he
can't
can-
answer that question, but they did inform us that it's, to take care of their elderly parents, but you
okay.
can.
You can,
It's actually mine.
come up, please introduce yourself.
Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Scott Berryman. I am the applicant's son-in-law. I will be helping them with all the building and everything. And what it's for is they've reached their 70s, they're starting to have a few health problems, it's starting to slow down a little bit. Rather than try and find a long-term care facility, what we're gonna do is we're gonna sell our house and move into the main house and allow them to live back there so we can be right there and care for them as needed.
Very good. Okay.
Good for you.
And this is
Thumbs up.
restricted for being a rental, right?
As all of them are in the city.
That's what I thought.
I live outside the 200 feet away from it, but around the corner, and I think it's perfectly appropriate use. It's sort of a deep lot, so I don't
Right.
think it'd be a problem for the
The
neighborhood at all.
original plot was a lot smaller, it's not up there, but there was an additional half lot put on that when they bought it from the original builder.
There's plenty of room.
From this portion here was an actual extra half lot that they bought when they bought it, so there's plenty of room back there for the space that is needed.
Is there gonna be a separate driveway for that or not?
I showed one here. I spoke to the city building official at the time, and he said he didn't see a problem with it. Currently, there is a circle drive,
Right.
but we were proposing to put one back there for them to have their own little entrance and exit, so they come and go as they please.
Okay. Would that be coming in on the same road or?
Currently, this is Hiawatha over here, and
Uh-huh.
this is Tassachie, and there's a circle drive that comes on both of them.
Right.
This would be off of Tassachie,
Okay.
blocking the whole picture.
Yeah, all right.
Any more comments?
The only issue is that when the house is sold, the fact that it could be a rental property. And that's my only concern. I love the idea, and I'm with you on that, and, but
That's-
you know, that's what happens, so,
One of the conditions to be able to get is the owner has to sign an affidavit
yeah,
prohibiting it, that gets recorded.
Right.
Maybe they do it and you have a single meter. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
they do it at some point, but
it's a single meter.
it's a risk you run.
Yeah, single water meter as well,
Right.
but,
And it ties into the existing sewer also.
no, I got you, and I think it's probably a scenario that's gonna happen, it needs to happen more and more as people, as, you know, with the aging of America and kids taking care of their parents. So I'm definitely with you. But the fact that at some point when he sells the house, you know, so we just don't wanna see an Airbnb there.
My impression was that the affidavit and the covenant that's signed were to carry forward with the property.
Well, it is, but that doesn't, you know, this is
I
real, it's
understand.
called real life.
Nobody checks on that later.
Yeah.
Unless
But in
there's a
this
clause.
situation, I'm 100%
Well,
with you.
believe me, if it's rented, then Carl gets to go tell him to move. Any more comments from the audience, from council? Close the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 10C is Resolution 2052, approving conditional use permit for a guest dwelling unit at 1406 Hiawatha Avenue. Go ahead.
Go ahead, sir.
No, I'll let you read.
You have the proposed resolution in your packet, consistent with what was discussed during the public hearing. We believe on the first page of the resolution in paragraph 2, B as in boy, the last sentence of that should be deleted. It reads, the site plan must show living space as no more than 647 square feet for approval. That should come out. They're still required to maintain the 50%. So you're not letting them loose on that. But to make sure that if it meets their site plan and they want to build what they have a site plan for, we need not include that.
Okay. Councilman, any more discussion? Or from the audience? Do I got a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve of the resolution as presented with the change in the square footage.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any more discussion? Kathy?
Benton. Ivy.
Yes.
Lorenz.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Cloud.
Yes. Okay. 10D, public hearing intended to use uniform method of collecting a non-ad valorem special assessment fire protection service. For purpose of the hearing, the city council is considering a resolution that, if passed, will use a non-ad valorem special assessment for the cost of providing fire protection service within the boundaries of the city, including the newly annexed areas. The special assessment will be collected annually, commencing with the financial year beginning October 1st, 2021. Following the public hearing, Resolution 2051 will be considered by council to impose the assessment. Mr. Swain?
For just to be clear with the members of the public that are here, the newly annexed areas would have, they will pay an assessment to the county for the time we are in right now, from now until the end of September of this coming year. And then this assessment would start the day after that and go forward, and they wouldn't be a county assessment at the same time. You would not be paying every county and city for the same time period, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And
Any
just for clarification, the county is going to be taking care of their fire needs from now up until October 1 of next year, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. Any public input? Any questions? Any councilman's input or questions? Close the hearing. 10E, Resolution 2020-51, electing the use of uniform method of collecting non-ad valorem special assessment for fire protection. Attached, please find Resolution 2020-51 for council's consideration. A resolution will implement the use of the uniform method of collecting a non-ad valorem special assessment for fire protection service within the municipality boundaries of the city, including newly annexed areas. And it says, note Exhibit B to resolution is legal description of the city. Exhibit B will be provided to council at Tuesday's meeting, which we have. So do we have any comments? Input? Motion?
I make a motion that we pass resolution 2020-51 as presented.
We have a motion and a second. If there's no more discussion, poll the board.
Dennis.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Morant.
Yes.
Stewart.
Yes.
Carlisle.
Yes. Okay, 10F, property assessment, clean energy PACE presentation. Mr. Numal. So background attached, please find the following information. I'll let him explain everything.
Good evening.
Evening.
Thank you.
Jeff Kingham with the Economic Development Office for the county. I just wanted to give a quick background before Devesh steps up to let you guys know what this resolution or PACE program is. We had a prospect come to us back in September looking to do some business here in town, and he had used the PACE program in another state, up in, I believe it was Indiana. Anyway, it's something that has to be enabled locally because the payback mechanism is through the property tax assessment. They are the program administrator and the end lender. It's meant for, a portion of a building project, and I'll get into some of the specifics on that. It's something that we brought before the Board of County Commissioners on October 20th. They passed it unanimously. It is something that's for commercial investments or commercial businesses that they can be able to use to fill as a stopgap or part of the financial stack to complete the financing for said project. And then with that, I'll let Vesh finish up and answer questions as needed.
Good evening, Devesh Nirmal. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I'm, so for the record, Tampa, Florida. I'm with the Florida PACE Funding Agency and the administrator for that agency, which is Counterpoint Energy Solutions. So I think there's a slide deck that was also attached. If we could cue that up.
Yeah, this is just the overview.
Yeah. This is the overview that the county did for their agenda item, which is great, but I think I can also.
Okay, they've got the slide deck.
Okay. Oh, they've got it, okay. Let me, if you don't mind, I can grab my copy on the computer or, okay. Very good. Thanks, Ron. So if you don't mind following along, I'll try not to skip around. This is the first page of that deck. I'm gonna step back at the 50,000 foot level really quick and explain to you what all this really represents. You were just talking about a special assessment for fire. PACE is also an assessment. It's unlike those that are imposed in that way. It's a voluntary assessment that each property owner decides to take on. It was enabled in 2010 by Florida statute to allow capital to flow to what were considered improvements to private properties, whether it's nonprofit or privately owned commercial, or in the case of Florida too, that it allows for residential, that contribute not only to a private benefit but a public benefit. So it is limited to certain types of properties, mainly those that mitigate windstorm risk, those that improve energy efficiency, and those that allow for the generation of clean and renewable energy. And it is for that public purpose side of it is why it's able to go as a non-ad valorem assessment paid through the taxes. And that is, through that, by allowing that, it allows for capital to flow to basically mitigate the upfront costs that prevent somebody from, for example, putting on a roof, and creating a cash flow or a net cash flow annually that is affordable because it's a long-term fixed rate financing. So when the capital saw that the capital is able to accrue to these types of projects because of the way it's set up and the repayment mechanism through the non-ad valorem status. If you remember, in the mid-2000s, we had a failed property insurance market in the state. So it was very fresh on the legislator's mind about the windstorm risk. And the way this was enabled is that the state said local government can allow this to occur within their jurisdictions. And for efficiency's sake, what happened is several local governments got together across the state and 4 separate districts were created. They all are statewide. They all have different capital providers or PACE providers within those districts. I represent one of those districts, which is the Florida PACE Funding Agency. It represented City of Flagler Beach, Osceola County, Kissimmee were the founding members of that district. And there are about 150 jurisdictions that have joined as members. The county passed a resolution that opted into all 4 PACE districts. And it also had language that allowed the cities to be part of that program. And this is a part of the process to get the formal consent. So that explains the legislative intent and how this works. Essentially, I want to go through, if you skip ahead to the next slide, quickly tells you that this operates in about 35 states. PACE is enabled in one fashion or the other. In California, they have earthquake issues, and a lot of the Midwest, it's mainly energy efficiency. The idea is that existing building stock needs to be improved for it to be productive. In Florida, the windstorm is unique, and we have that issue with a lot of the properties in Florida. The CAT fund, as you know, right now, Citizens is already at beyond capacity, given where we are right now. So this is a tool to help mitigate that high risk that we deal with on our properties. The next slide tells you what the commercial PACE volume has been. Pretty much, this is an early 2020 slide. So about 1.5 billion. Most of those measures have been for energy efficiency, and then renewable energy, and then sort of the other categories, resiliency, for example, the windstorm pieces as well. Skipping ahead to the next slide, is just a list of the current jurisdictions. In Florida, it's about 60% of the state that has PACE enabled. A lot of it started on the coast because of the windstorm risk. And as it evolved because of the AC replacements, the roof replacements, windows, doors, it's evolved to include obviously other parts of the state where it has an impact. And in particular, what happened with Highlands County was there was a developer that was looking to buy an obsolete industrial property. And one of the case studies that's in here actually is similar to Texas situation. When someone's looking to buy that and they're going to invest the money to actually get the property, if they have the ability to use capital that is paid to the non-ad valorem, it makes a big difference in terms of the financial proposition. It is an off-balance sheet type of measure. It provides long-term financing that allows the cash flows to work on some of the higher performance investments, the HVAC, the roof, the windows, those type of things. So let me skip ahead actually to a slide that kind of would be useful. Sorry you have to kind of go through your deck here, but we'll hit some of the key points. This is several slides in. It's a chart that compares PACE to a conventional alternative type of loan. It's key to kind of understand the differences here and why this is of value to the property owners. So it represents 100% project financing. In other words, we're not looking to take any down payment. If it's qualified and it's within the limits the statute imposes on the amount that we can finance based on the value of the property or the appraised value for a major rehab or new construction, then we can do 100% of those items if they qualify, for example, windstorm or energy, et cetera. It's not linked to the credit of the owner or business. Instead, it's about the property as collateral, and, the use of that property, even beyond its current use. Is it something that merits this type of investment? The rates are long-term fixed, as I mentioned, and they're not, I know that represented on here, we have the banking community. It's not a bank loan. It's not an alternative to the bank loan. It is an alternative in a capital stack to some other types of debt, possibly, or some of equity. And it can go up to 30 years. If you're doing solar, because solar can last 30 years, we can finance up to the useful life. If it's windows, doors, roofs, we're talking 20, 25 years, depending on the actual product. And that's how we determine the term on each project. So in the case that we had here in the county, if that investment were to follow through and the owner was looking, let's just take a scenario. They pay $2.5 million for the property. They do have a plan for construction, and they look at an as-complete appraisal that would be, let's say, 4.5 or something like that. We could use that as-complete to say 25% of that 4.5 million, we could help cover the cost for the retrofits, whether it be roof, windows, HVAC systems, electrical. We don't do water in Florida. We do energy stuff. So that's just a good example of why it was attractive to the developer. They've already put their cash into purchase of the property. They'd like to conserve that capital for other high priority needs. And frankly, this developer was trying to do some cutting edge solar and some other pieces. And those are definitely qualified for the 30-year term. And then as far as the accounting treatment, I mentioned off balance sheet. It depends on how you want to treat this in your business, but we have a project in Central Florida where the investor is buying an existing office park, and they plan on making it what they call carbon neutral. So they're going to put a lot of investment in to get it to be basically as much energy as it uses, it's going to produce or conserve. So they're going to put geothermal in to cover the cooling and a little bit of solar. Now, this type of thing is not really going to happen if you don't have a way to get the cash flows to work. So if you look at some of the industrial situations, even existing manufacturing plants, they may have a situation where they've got deferred maintenance. Even an office building, an apartment building, you may have HVAC. Oh, thank you. Something's going on behind me. So this enables you to get around those thresholds of payback that are very conservative. Like, I can't make the investment because it's over a 2-year payback. So this can get you around that hurdle, and ultimately result in a lower cost of operation. And the PACE assessment in a hotel or a multifamily or a multi-tenant office can be passed through the lease structure, triple net or gross, because what you're doing is you're lowering the energy cost for the tenant or occupant. So you can, if you're able to, the lease structure pass through the tax assessment, you should be at a net zero or I'd say neutral or a positive, depending on how it works out. So there's different reasons why, and all those reasons are summarized here, as I stated. Let's see what else. Maybe I'll just jump to a case study. It may not be as legible as I'd like it because I did a lot of presentation. This is a property in Texas.
This way or?
Oh yeah, it's actually further up.
It's 15, Scott.
Maybe I'm mistaken. It's actually.
Yeah, the other way, I think.
Other way?
It's up there, yeah. this is very similar to the situation, I think, that the Pacific property, yeah, became obsolescent, and essentially with the new standards for safety and operating conditions for these manufacturing or distribution plants, investors had to look at, well, how much would it take me to get this to be in code operating condition for having a tenant or my own business to run successfully. And until Pace was around, nobody was really making those investments. So Pace helped the particular company, this athletic lettering company, make that investment, move in, create jobs, and run a successful operation. And they basically covered HVAC, I believe LED lighting, and may have included possibly some roof or some other work that qualified. And then multifamily is another very critical sector. I think there's another case study if you scroll down. This is a project we closed. The capital provider closed in Minnesota. And you see what it covered: building envelope, HVAC, direct hot water, low flow fixtures. The important point here is affordability, even workforce housing, is not just about what will be the rent, but what's the operating cost. Ultimately, the tenant pays the utility bill. We've got a project in Bradenton where the developer is doing a net zero workforce housing, no utility bill. And it's, what do you call it? What's the terminology for the rent? It's below market. It's the standard they have to meet with the city. And so it all comes together, right? Because if you build it right up front, you lower the operating costs over the long term. And, the developer made a comment here about their ability to reduce their footprint and the utility bills of the tenants, and frankly, market that as part of their project. The amount of Pace was $5.5 million on a project that is probably, if that's 25%, then you can imagine what the total cost of that development was. Now, when we talk about the CRA, I know that we had a chat to discuss locally what's going on with the downtown. There's this scale of project, and there's a smaller scale of, improvements to your local downtown real estate. So if the city's looking to accelerate that, maybe I know in some cities I've worked with, they have facade grant programs and other things they like to do. Fundamentally, though, the structure and the mechanicals need to also be upgraded. It's not just about the look and feel from the outside, especially tenants. We bring that to the attention of the city. Hey, I'm renting here. I wish I had a better ventilation system for my restaurant. Can you get my owner to make a change, or can you work with us? This is a great way to achieve that, because the owner can actually make the investment, satisfy the tenant, pass through the cost of that annual assessment on the tax bill, all while decreasing the operating cost expense, so the tenant's electric bill will go down, comfort will go up, and ultimately it'll invite more occupants to solicit that business. So I think that's the kind of win-win on economic development and how this works. And as far as how we work with the banks, I know we had a chance to talk to the mayor earlier in the day. It's a collaboration with the senior lender on the project. Anything over $1 million, we're going to seek lender consent to be, with the mortgage, and otherwise it's under notification on smaller projects. And I don't know if I need to, we had a slide on benefits to local government, but it's pretty clear the public benefit of improving properties. A couple other case studies, hotels, these are also popular. With COVID-19, some of the hotel financing has slowed up. The rates adjusted a bit, but that's coming back now. In fact, a good example, if you have any hotels that carry the flag of their, like a Hilton or a Best Western, we often have to do property improvement plans every couple of years. And those are standards they have to meet, and so Pace can be very useful. They can also charge maybe a green fee to recover that, but they've lowered operating costs, so there's also competitive room rates because of the way that this works. This is an office property where an investment group brought the office and they realized it needed more updates than they thought it needed. And and they had not allocated enough capital to make those upgrades. They used PACE to get that done. This is a nursing home in Miami. Initially had $1 million budget to, if you remember, we had the generator mandate on ALFs. They wanted to get that done, but they also had some HVAC upgrades. They were able to take it from 1 million to 3.7 and include what you typically, I have an energy management background, I can tell you when you do energy in a building, if you just were to do the LED lighting, you would cannibalize your HVAC retrofit, because now all of a sudden, you took a low-hanging fruit item from an investment perspective, and if you would combine that low-hanging fruit with the longer-term payback, you'd have a blended payback that's somewhere in the middle. But if you just do the low-hanging fruit, you make it even harder to justify financially the longer-term payback. So that the benefit here is you combine lighting, building controls, HVAC all together, you get a nice blended payback. It still may not meet your investment threshold. It still may be 3 or 4 years, and you're like, well, I don't want to invest in something that doesn't have a payback of 2 years. But with PACE, you can get there. You get around that obstacle. So it's market transformation for a lot of what we think, you know, whether you care about efficiency or not, or when the next storm will hit, this actually makes your community more resilient based on the uptake and the use of it. So obviously with a nursing home, I would even say that the generators are not enough. The mandate was to get a minimum standard. In a true storm event, if you're relying on fuel supply, which is constrained, it might be good in the large ALFs to think about solar and storage when the time is right. You can actually do continuity of operations. You don't have to evacuate. That's where everything is going. We're starting to see a shift in the market on the types of projects that are coming in. There's another ALF here. Basic stuff, windows. Retail has used this. If you might know Simon Malls, they're a national mall retailer, and Washington Prime spun off from them. They tend to do this because they obviously want to keep their spaces attractive. They've got major HVAC improvements they need to do. It's the same thing though. They will make the improvements to lighting, HVAC. They'll pass through to the tenants, the PACE assessment, but their utility bills of tenants have gone down, and they've got better, more inviting, you know, LED lighting type of environments for their customers. So that's kind of an overview, both on the public side, how this works, why it's done through the non-ad valorem, how it is enabled, and then also why it works in the marketplace as a tool. That we think in our discussions with economic development, there may be some opportunities to be competitive and differentiated for the county. We're looking at opportunities for that. I know that was a lot of stuff. I'm sorry. I do this every day. So if I was all over the place, I do apologize.
So the paperwork indicates that you do residential as well. Why isn't the county doing that aspect?
There's some history there, and I think there's a chance to, yeah, go ahead.
There has been some highly public cases of residential PACE financing, and mostly it's through predatory practices by contractors. That was the main reason for the hesitation from.
Wait, can you speak to the microphone? He's having a hard time there.
Sorry. That was the main reason for the concern from the council. So, Mr. Zweyer, the tax collector, you know, he had voiced that he would emphatically oppose residential being included. So just at this time, we just decided to do the commercial because the hesitation from council.
Wow. Is that an issue elsewhere?
I'm just I've been doing this for a couple of years, and I represent a district that does residential and commercial.
Mm-hmm.
It's largely a political phenomena of opposition to the way PACE works by some industries. And we find that the tax collectors in particular have a certain few of them have a certain bent on this. The state enabled this for local government, meaning the commissions and the councils, to provide policy oversight for PACE, not the tax collector community. But as you know, it is the purview of an elected official like a tax collector to, you know, weigh in on however they'd like to on this. But it's enabled through local government. The districts that we represent are local government. When you opt in, you're opting in as a member to an interlocal governmental entity. that is providing a turnkey service to make sure the PACE thing is done efficiently and effectively. I just got off a call with the Realtor group in Hillsborough County, and I think the Realtor agents, there's about maybe 2 or 3 Realtor groups, maybe just 2, that it's usually the legislative affairs representatives that have an issue with PACE. And the agents themselves, when they are educated about it, see the value. Like, for example, if you're trying to get a homeowner into a home and you need to take care of insurance, if that home does not have a compliant roof, you're not going to get an insurance policy on it. So one way to do this is say, okay, we buy the home, we get this retrofit done, and we get our insurance, and we make a deal with the bank, and everything works out. Or when you sell the home, what it is as a tax, remember, it's ahead of the primary mortgage. The way the statute was written to limit that impact is to say, because we behave as tax, we cannot accelerate that note. Meaning the PACE district or the PACE provider cannot accelerate the PACE lien. All that is due is this year's payment or anything in arrears that has not been paid. There's a chart we do where we look at what is the delinquency of PACE assessments. It's much lower than even primary mortgages. What typically happens is somebody might be surprised when they get their first increase in their tax bill. They may be late and they cure by the time before tax certificate, June. Most delinquencies cure, and their rates are below 0.5%. Our district has not seen any report of a foreclosure that's tied to PACE. Because what you're doing is you're improving the value of the collateral, you're reducing operating costs. We cannot underwrite. I should have mentioned this. Let me go back to a very important slide. It may not be on this. Actually, it's on here. It has the qualifications for PACE for underwriting.
So is this a real burden to the tax office? Is that part of this issue?
Actually, no. The way the state set it up was that the tax collector and property appraiser can charge a fee.
Right.
And for example, Broward County charges a 0.11% per assessment. Some counties have chosen to charge more. We try to say there should be a cap. If you have a commercial project that did end up spending $1,000 on it annually for the tax collector to put it on the tax roll seems to be a little bit excessive. So it's a negotiation. So every time we have a tax collector agreement in front of Mr. Dwyer right now to be signed off, and they will decide what fee they want to take. That's going to be fully compensated. So there's no cost, risk, or liability to you as a county. It's all private capital. The key thing here on underwriting is you cannot have been late on your taxes and your mortgage for the past 3 years in Florida to use PACE. So that, I just want to make sure that it may not be here because I have a different slide that goes in more residential, and that's where that's written down. But that applies to any PACE assessment for commercial or residential. So it selects the homeowners that are really looking to preserve their property and stay in it long term. If they decide to move in 2 years because they got a new job or something else happens in the family, just like a HELOC or any other lien on the property, the new buyer's mortgage company is going to probably want that to be paid off. Technically, PACE can transfer like a CDD would, but it's quite possible that the new buyer's mortgage company will want to have that paid off. Have to remember that if they put the new roof on, they can sell the property at that much higher value. Or they put the solar panels on, or they put the new windows on. So it all works out. The realtors have a disclosure from Florida Realtors that when you get into a transaction, the buyer is supposed to disclose through a form that's signed off by agents and buyer and seller. There's a PACE assessment on here. Our PACE district gets numerous calls for payoff from title companies to process that, so it's not a surprise. It's everything. It's a well-oiled machine, but it has to be treated that way by all parties involved.
Is there prepayment when they pay that off?
On residential, there is no prepayment penalty. Commercial tends to have a more nuanced, sophisticated transaction where a property owner may have a relationship with a particular bank, financial entity, or lenders, and even if they have to sell off in 2 to 5 years, there's a way to set up the penalty to to be, to work out for them.
What type of penalty would you be talking about then?
Prepayment penalties, I'm not the underwriting arm too much on this, but I think there's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, over, you know, a period of up to 6 years or whatever it is, or there's yield maintenance, and then 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, and if a property were to go into foreclosure, then let's just say the bank or whoever's holding that first mortgage, they're gonna be responsible for this, for that.
What there's, and this is key, so when I said we can't accelerate, so just like if whoever the new owner is, all they owe to the Pace District is what's in arrears and the current year, not the full note.
And what
So-
happens if they don't pay that?
Well,
Then you
we
can-
can't foreclose, for one thing, the Pace District cannot foreclose, it's
Okay.
gonna be the bank, so.
Well, just, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask Mr. Shoup here, because he's a banker, how does that settle with you guys when you go to give financing on a property?
No, we've never done that, but just thinking it through is that you really have to take a look at what that assessment is and calculate in to say, okay, this is the risk we're gonna take on that, cause that, if it's a, you know, 100,000 over 20 years or something, you know, you're really
I mean, that theoretically
small.
could,
So if you,
Yeah.
and if they're not paying their ad valorem tax, that's gonna show up to the bank, so you're not gonna be back probably maybe 2 years at the most.
That's right.
From a bank standpoint.
Yeah.
And really it's an equity piece that's added to it. So if we require 25% down on a commercial property, they come in and then give say 15% equity, they require at least 10% equity into the project for their half of it. So really that increases the loan to value for the bank itself, so it's a benefit to the bank. You know, it's an availability for a client to get 30-year financing or lay it off for 30 years. There's no I don't think was a little prepayment penalty, but not much on it, but. So it's really, from a banking standpoint, it adds equity to the project. So we come in at a lower loan to value. In the event of a foreclosure, you know, if the markets don't crash like they did a few years ago,
Right.
but if it's a stable market or rising market, you know, it's gonna work out from the bank standpoint, but the exposure on the tail end of the foreclosure is not that great. It's not the $100,000 loan.
That's right.
It's the $500 for 2 years or whatever it is.
Okay.
so you would look at that from a bank point of view, in essence, favorably.
Yes.
It's a balance for you, right? You've got to look at the fact that it's ahead of you, but how much ahead
Correct.
in that
Right.
case that it does go to tax deed.
I mean, you
Right.
could say, you know, if you wanna be conservative, take the risk and say, we wanna plug in 5-year assessment and use that as a mental calculation into it, to say,
Right.
okay, if they don't pay for the 5 years, that's gonna take us to an 80% loan to value instead of a 75% loan to value, which is still in a, you know, doesn't give the equity value for the improvements that are made. So, I mean, it's got kind of an inherent risk calculation that you're gonna take, but you're not gonna take and say, okay, I'm gonna have to pay back the total amount. It's just whatever assessments are for that period of time.
Period of time.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good. And we're already in the program just by default. So our option is to opt out if we want or go for it. Okay.
Thank you.
You have a question?
Thank you.
What is there, we need to make a motion on anything, or is it just an indication that we would?
Yeah, administratively, you all do not have to take a vote. It would, it could be simply as Scott saying, yes, we want to allow this jurisdiction of Sebring to stay into the program to allow the businesses to take advantage of this.
Okay, you got it.
So we don't need a motion.
No, not unless you wanna get out. Yeah. So we're good.
Okay, we'll move along.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll go into 10G. This is the proposed construction pickleball court at Max Long Recreational Complex. Mr. Smith will be present to request locating a pickleball court on the northerly side of the soccer fields at Max Long Recreational Complex. It appears this work requires removal or replacement of an existing volleyball court and 2 holes of discontinued golf course. Mr. Smith.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for hearing us. We're very appreciative. Thank you for coming. Very appreciative. It's good. So I'd like to start this with just a little correction. Jeff Linsku may be listed on your packet. He was unavailable tonight, and so in his place is Sue Yuan, and he'll be meeting her in just a minute. So I'd like to start the meeting tonight with our pickleball version of movie night. Don't panic. It's 1 minute and 40 seconds. So Scott has graciously agreed to handle the electronics, and I have agreed to shut up and get out of the way. So here's the movie.
It's about pickleball. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America. It was invented by 3 dads on Bainbridge Island back in 1965. It's a combination of tennis, ping pong, and badminton. It's played on a badminton-sized court with a net about 2 inches shorter than a tennis net. You play it with a paddle a little bit bigger than a ping pong paddle and a little more durable wiffle ball. You can play it as either doubles or singles. So singles is 1-on-1, doubles is a combination of 2 teams, 2-on-2. It's growing for a number of reasons. It's a lot easier on the body and it's a lot easier to pick up. Most racket sports require hours and hours of lessons, but with pickleball, you can walk onto a court, pick up a paddle, and within 5 minutes of learning how to play, you can be playing a competitive game with your friends. It's a really fast-paced sport, which takes advantage of your quick hands and reflexes, but it's also strategic. It's like a chess match on a court. Pickleball is a great workout. It's fun for all ages and skill levels, whether you've been playing tennis your whole life or you've never picked up a paddle or a racket before. Pickleball is a really social sport. Unlike tennis, you're really close to your opponents and your partner, which allows for more of a social environment on and off the court. And it's a super competitive sport with tournaments all across the nation all year round. If you want to learn more about pickleball and how to play, go to playpickleball.com.
So that gives you a kind of a look and feel for the game. I heard somebody say ping pong.
I said it looked like a big version of ping pong.
Yes. This guy right over there is a good ping pong player, and there's a natural flow to it. It's same kind of swing. So now you got a look and feel. So what I'd like to do is introduce you to Sue Yuan, and she will tell you a little bit more about pickleball and our ideas. Sue's an avid player. Sue is a very experienced pickleball teacher. She will be our director of training as we get this project up and running. She's from Thunder Bay, Ontario, and I'm pretty convinced that she drives all the way here to Sebring to kick my butt on the pickleball court. I think for no other reason. She enjoys it a lot, and I'm getting used to it. So I'd like to introduce you to Sue Yuan.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Sue, and I have to just add, Dave, I stayed extra last year, a couple extra months, just so I could beat them a little bit more. What I thought I'd do is hand out a couple paddles to kind of get you in the spirit of things. You guys have been working hard, and it's been a long evening. Kind of share some
Wait
of
till we
these
get a
paddles.
paddle.
Now,
They didn't give me one. It's a
those are the
duck.
paddles we use, these are the balls. I'll put a couple up here. However, if the balls start flying around, I'm gonna have to confiscate the paddles from you. So have some fun, but behave yourselves.
It's just a hard ball.
Okay, I obviously think pickleball is a great game, but I'm not alone in that. About 3.3 million other players in the United States feel the same way. And as you heard in the video, pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports in the United States. Since 2017, USA Pickleball, which is our national governing agency, or association has doubled their membership. And you can say, oh, that's fine, but here's what's going to interest you. The South Atlantic region, of which Florida is a member, has the largest growth. So their average annual growth is 19.5%. So that's huge. I didn't quite get the math done, but I think that means that the participation is doubling in about 4 years, something like that. So it's growing throughout the country, but it is really growing in Florida. So we've got a lot of people interested in playing in Florida. And I think the reason for that is, there's a couple reasons. One is it's easy to learn the sport. As the video said, you get the paddle, you learn the rules, and you can be playing and actually playing, having rallies that continue right away. It doesn't take that long. Now, if you want to pursue pickleball and become a better player, well, it's a little bit more challenging. So you can be challenged for years to come as you try to perfect your shot and develop your strategy. So it's easy to learn and challenging to master. Another thing about pickleball that makes it so popular is it's enjoyed by all ages. So I've seen young children playing the game. As a matter of fact, they're modifying the equipment so that younger kids can play the game. And I've had the chance, the honor, to play with a woman that was 90 plus years old up in Michigan. She was training for the, I don't know the correct title, the National Seniors Games in Birmingham, Alabama that year. And so she needed someone to work with her, and so I did that. So it kind of shows it's something that you can do from young to old, which I find really, really exciting, because sometimes we have sports in our cities that, you know, it's like the young kids can do, or it's only the more mature. This is across the spectrum. Also, it's very social. Pickleball players are known to be a fun-loving group. They're an inclusive group and welcoming other people to play. So that's some of the reasons that the game has grown so much in the U.S. Now, to switch gears a little bit, as director of training, what are some of the things that I want to do and bring to Sebring in terms of pickleball? And one would be clinics. I'd hope to have clinics for beginners so that they can learn how to play the game and feel comfortable stepping onto the court with other people they may not know and stepping into a game. Intermediate players that are interested in improving their strategy, their shot selection, and advanced players that are trying to hone their skills. And we know that there's interest and desire on the part of people living in Sebring, because when beginning clinics have been offered before, they've maxed out at about 40 people very quickly. So we know the interest is there. In addition, Tanglewood has an annual tournament, and that they've had to turn people away every year. So it's very popular in Sebring. So one of the things, again, would be having the clinics. Another would be taking pickleball into the schools. In Thunder Bay, where I'm from, the high schools asked me to come in and introduce pickleball in their phys ed programs. And so I did that. I went in, taught pickleball. Well, it didn't take but a couple times, and the school bought equipment, and that's now a part of their curriculum. So it's very neat. It's introduced a whole new group to the sport. So we'd like to do that here also. Another thing that I think is very neat that I'd like to do is have some family days where a family, maybe adults with young children or older children and older parents, come out and give the sport a try. In our family, we have 3 generations that play. My parents learned to play pickleball in Florida. They taught my siblings and I to play. We've taught our kids to play. So we get together as a family and have a great time playing. The only thing I'll say is, you like teaching others, you like teaching your kids to play, but those of you that have kids know what happens, right? Pretty soon, who's beating who? So that's one of the fun things about playing as a family, though. But we'd like to have some family days where people come out, can try the sport, be introduced to it, and have an enjoyable physical experience as a family. So, one of the things that I'd like to say is I've played in a variety of places in states ranging from Hawaii to as nearby as Alabama. I've played in Canada, and in playing in all these different places, I've played in large metropolitan areas where there are hundreds of courts, to I played in a small village with probably a population of 250, and they had their one pickleball court to play. So it's very neat. There's a network in the U.S. of pickleball courts, over 30,000 courts. And so there are places to play. I guess I'd like to turn it over now to Dave to talk about specifically in Florida, places to play and relating that to Sebring. But before I do, I thought I'd show you how we end a game of pickleball. So how do we end a game, say, of baseball or basketball? Don't the teams line up and shake hands? Right. This is what we do. Good game. I'm joking. That's
Who
my
won?
husband.
That's what we want.
It's a friendly sport. Here's what we do actually. Why don't you grab that paddle for me? We just tap paddles and say good game. So that's a little bit about pickleball in general. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, then I'll turn it over to Dave, and he's going to talk about some of the more specifics.
I do have one question. Before you run away. Are there pickleball courts in Sebring now?
We have some courts, and Dave could probably address this better, but for example, Tanglewood has courts.
Okay.
But you have to live in Tanglewood to
Okay.
have access to them. Dave, you can address that further for him.
There are more than Tanglewood.
You come to the mic, please.
Excuse me,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
More than Tanglewood, Buttonwood Bay, Sun and Lake, a couple other places have pickleball courts. It's great. You have to live there to play.
Yeah. Is there gonna be a restriction on this? Are you gonna have to belong to the club or?
Not a club. You probably will not be able to play for free, but it's open to membership anywhere. And we're actually probably going to figure out a way if you could play for free some. So not a membership, but fees to play.
Yeah. I think I've noticed on some of our tennis courts that there's lines that somebody told me were pickleball lines.
Yeah.
Can you use a tennis
Yeah.
court for this too?
Not well.
Okay.
Not well, you can, and it sort of depends on what level you play. If your skill level is pretty high, no, doesn't work. Just a beginner, you really don't care if it's in or out, you just want to hit it. And so that's kind of okay, but inevitably, if you start out with over-taping the lines, it doesn't last very long. People want permanent courts to play on.
Yeah. Okay.
So, kind of.
The net's lower too, right?
Only 2 inches. Tennis court in the center is 36. Pickleball in the center is 34 inches. So it's not much, but it is lower, just by a little bit. So, anything else for Sue or? So, Scott told me move this thing along and keep it crisp and keep the thing going. And I told him I'd do that, but I kind of want to slow it down a little bit, and for good reason. In 33 years of marriage, this will be the longest I've ever got to speak.
Is your wife here?
Yeah, she's sitting right there.
I steeled myself. I'm going to pay for that.
Yes,
I know.
you are. She wrote that down.
Yeah. So now the retribution begins. So I want to tell you all a little bit about the surrounding cities, what they are doing. Close, some of them real close to us, some of them a little further apart. And I have to use my list to do that, to go down. Placid Lakes, they are actively contemplating pickleball courts. They've had public meetings about it, and it's progressing. And I think it'll happen. Lake Placid, Sun and Lakes at Lake Placid is right now marking temporary lines on old tennis courts. The idea being that soon, as they judge the interest, they'll turn those into permanent pickleball courts. Punta Gorda, a great place. They have 16 state-of-the-art pickleball courts, 8 more under contract building. It is a burgeoning place and a really fun place to play. It's just as good as it gets. So, and it's a good social community. We've gone down there to play and felt very welcome each time we were there. Winter Haven has 6 courts. I haven't been to them, but they're active. They're all the time. Up in Auburndale, they have 8 courts. I mention Auburndale because they're in a kind of a loose group where we have traveling teams that go around to the different venues, and we've been to Auburndale. If we have courts, I'm sure Auburndale will come to us too. So we'll be aware, we'll be part of that community. The villages, I like mentioning this. How many you think? How many courts? Anybody? Guess.
50.
250.
24.
Mr. Swain wins. 250 active courts for pickleball here. Now,
But there's a lot of people that live in the
picture
villages.
that.
Yeah, they grows
it
every
is.
day.
It's busy, but picture that, 8 o'clock in the morning, everybody's had their coffee. That means about 10,000 seniors get up and go play pickleball every morning. It's a burgeoning sport, to say the least. Okay, so we hope we've convinced you there's a need for pickleball in Sebring. Why should it be at Max Long Park? The facility's perfect. It's centrally located. It is located between Avon Park and Lake Placid. We'll get players from there. And it's certainly centrally located in Sebring. So the location is really, really important. It is a terrific use for land that currently is pretty fallow. It's not being used for very much. So we would take that same land and put people on it. It is aesthetically pleasing. It's a sports complex, and pickleball's a sport. So when you get there and get out, there's baseball courts and there's swimming and there's all these, and pickleball's part of that. It will fit right into it very, very nicely. And it feels good to be in that complex, thinking that you might be able to play pickleball there someday. There's adequate parking. Surprisingly, we've looked at it pretty carefully, and our day-to-day use is maybe 25 cars, something like that. And it's adequate. It works for us.
Where is the parking on the sketches here? Where
Right here.
The 2 places, but
is that along these? Is that?
no, sir. That lays out the outline of the courts.
Oh, okay.
The parking that's available to us is not on that diagram, but you know that road that runs up there to
Right.
that?
Yeah.
On both sides of that road, diagonal parking is readily available. And that's where most people currently park now.
I see.
Except
So
on
on the
Saturdays.
grass along there is what you're saying.
Mayor, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mayor
Okay.
Shupin?
Except on Saturdays, during soccer season.
Yeah.
It is.
It's a little crowded.
I mean, that's a couple of concerns that I have from being there, just thinking about this too, is like, if you hold tournaments, are they weekend tournaments?
Yeah, and that's a good point. And
You know, you're gonna
it's time
find
to do
just
that.
some conflicting things that happen on, cause it's packed between
Yeah.
softball, baseball, and soccer on Saturdays. I mean, it's a loaded up, there's not a lot of parking.
Yeah.
I mean, there's parking, but you may have to walk
Yeah.
from the road.
And the big advantage we have, and I'll just mention the tournaments that, instead of coming to them later, they're a really good source of revenue and a good source of outreach. And we can easily bring 200 people from out of town into these tournaments. And it's revenue to keep the facility going too. we can schedule them when we want them to play. So before we had a tournament, obviously our thing to do would be to coordinate that with the baseball fields, other fields, soccer people, and make sure we're not doing it on a weekend when they're having a tournament. So we can't make it perfect, but I think we can make it very, very, very agreeable, I guess is the best way. It will take some thinking. I would assume we could spill over into the Y. Lots of space there. So between the Y and the baseball diamond that may or may not be having a tournament, we think we can address that 2 weekends out of the year when parking might be an issue. And that's all we'll do is 2. That's enough. It's a big project. Okay, central location. Great use of unused land. Aesthetically pleasing, adequate parking. The number one reason for Max Long Park for us senior citizens, it has bathrooms. Everybody who's a senior citizen here knows how important that is. So bathrooms are in nice shape. They do need a little bit of paint. We can do that. But I had to mention that all of us older people did notice that they were there.
How close are the bathrooms to the?
Very close, just straight south of the sand, and you can possibly see.
Yeah, there's a couple
the
of buildings
building.
there, yeah.
Triangular building below.
Yeah.
It's
Gotcha.
right here.
Yeah.
It's that, that's the back.
Right.
There's 2 of them, and there's some other things there. This is a concession stand that's available, that during tournaments, that could be used to generate maybe a little more revenue. So it's a great facility, it really is. Do we have to be there? No. Do we want to be there? Yes. Yeah, we do.
I think that is leased to Sebring Youth Baseball. The bathrooms, especially the concession stand.
Yeah.
That's something I don't know for certain sitting here tonight, but that's something we would want to look into. But it sounds
Sure.
like you're amenable to coordinating with them anyhow.
Absolutely, and we can sublease with them too. If they're paying money, then we can help with that too. So,
It's between that's an agreement between the Y and baseball.
Yep.
Because the YMCA put in a third, baseball put in a third, the city put in a third to build that. So baseball and the YMCA kind of alternate using it. But they've worked it out that way, so.
yeah, we'd be, of course, we know we're the new kid on the block, so we'll be as amenable as possible. So, yeah, okay, with bathrooms. Porta potties, no. Nah, that's just not a long-term solution. We'll have people playing pickleball 365 days a year. It's that kind of sport. It lends itself to year-round and people every day. We currently are doing that. So now, who the heck pays for all of this? Not the city of Sebring. Nothing. We're funded. And I want to emphasize that point. We are not only funded to build these courts, but we are also funded to sustain these courts. And that funding would come from some advertising, some banner display advertising type, from these tournaments that we talked about. A tournament can bring in $4,000 or $5,000 in a day. Not much to the city's budget, but big for us and helps us sustain. So the numbers are pretty clear that we will never come hat in hand and say, oh gosh, we need your money to help do this and help do that. We don't need it.
So,
We're good.
question, are you talking about lighting as well and upkeep of the courts? You're not gonna ask for any help?
I'll tell you specifically what we'd like.
Okay.
Cut the grass, because you currently have the facility to do that,
Mhm.
the equipment, and that's about it. We are hands-on people, very energetic. We can clean up after ourselves. We can provide our own landscaping and landscaping maintenance. We're capable and ready to do this. And naturally, anything the city says, well, we'd like to help you with this, we'll take it. There's no question that won't take any help we can get, but we are capable of keeping, of making this an ongoing thing.
So you would be taking care of the insurance and trash
You know,
removal?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer. Trash removal, yeah, I don't think that's much of an issue. Maybe we can share a dumpster with something that's already on site. I don't know.
It's a city
I think there's a city dumpster there.
So,
Yeah,
There's
actually,
already
I
one
know
there.
there's two. I just didn't know how private they were.
It's city.
It
I mean,
is
it's-
city,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So trash removal is a chip shot.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I don't know about the insurance. I haven't looked into it.
Mhm.
My thinking is we have to make sure that the city's covered, obviously,
Right.
because that's who any insurance claim would be directed at. And so whether a rider is required, I'm not clear. I wish I had a better answer, and I don't.
Are you intending for an organization to maintain all of these assets? The G8, I saw somewhere here the name.
We're a 501c3, GHP Ball Inc.
Right.
And we formed that corporation specifically so we can accept donations and that sort of thing. And GHP Ball is the corporation that has a board of directors that would manage our courts. Nice to be on the board, go pick up the trash. So we do have an overarching authority, official
Mhm.
authority, but again, to Sue's point, we're hands-on. We really are hands-on. We can easily take care of our own trash.
Mhm.
Important thing about, I don't mean to get long-winded, I'm going. Blowing the courts, pretty important for the game. Certain times leaves blow on it. It's in our budget. We've got that plan for us to take care of it.
can I ask a question? A legal question. What is the city's responsibility to provide access to these courts?
As far as parking?
Well, no, I mean, it's just, if we do this, it's on city property and we've got to allow people to use it. How is that gonna work? I mean, can we not, do they have to, can they go through that group to play? Can we do, is there a
You could
financial?
what I had envisioned was a lease, if council wanted to move forward with
Right.
something like this, city leasing a portion of the property to GHP Ball.
GHP Ball.
Right.
It would then procure its own insurance, name the city as an additional insured. And then all the balance of the obigations and the upkeep, maintenance, other than whatever deal was worked between the city, and that would be on them to maintain, and then they would
Mhm.
control the access to that area, like Sebring Youth Baseball
Right.
has maintenance control over its, as the YMCA does.
Okay, so it's
with
very
its lease
similar,
to the
very,
city.
very similar to that scenario.
It can be that way.
Okay,
And-
good.
And we had envisioned the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, so we're certainly on that same page.
Okay.
No question about it.
I just want to say, I think it's a neat idea. I think it's really cool that you guys don't need city funding.
Yeah,
for it.
You know, I do too, and I've told a couple of people about that, and they said, yeah. I said, what? So, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's true, we don't.
Yeah.
We think we've done our homework,
Yeah.
and we do not.
Yeah, I know you like this location. I just kind of wish that it was closer into the city so that we could get the people over closer to the city.
Believe me, they're gonna go there.
Yeah.
This is prime, it's a prime location.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
it's-
we actually have done some inquiry into more in the city, and that's ideal too. It's hard to find property, it really is. We actually want those tennis courts right over there. But the county wants them worse, and they have more money than we do. So that's the way that'll work out.
Yeah.
We need to keep that in mind.
Have you looked at Charlie Brown Park?
Yes, we have. A couple of issues with it. The first one is it really doesn't fit a pickleball courts. They don't quite fit on there. There's a possibility of splitting those courts and putting some in some city property across the street and the rest on Charlie Brown. It's not ideal. It's not ideal, but we have looked at it. We've looked at about maybe 15 to 20 places, 5 or 6 of which are serious. best spot. If you want pickleball in Sebring, boy, this is the spot to put it. It really is.
What are you envisioning for this clubhouse?
Pie in the sky. At some
Later down
point,
the road.
The way it lays out is really graceful, and there's a natural spot to put that clubhouse right there in the center, and for it to be the focus of players coming off the courts, the individual courts, and sitting down and talking and doing, just resting up. So it's such a natural spot. We'd really like to do that. We don't have the money right now. We can make it happen in a couple of years, but not right now.
Just a couple of concerns that I have, and we talked a little bit about this, is that there's an agreement with the YMCA to have that, they have their disc golf, they had a obstacle course, they had gardens back there, but they had come to us before, and we granted them the use of that property. And I think you just have to talk with them to see if,
Right.
What's going on, clear that up. Also, the buffer on that, there was, when we built the YMCA, there was a requirement to build an 8-foot wall going down like 200 or 300 feet, but the residents said, if you're leaving it on the corner, you're fine. And then when the YMCA, the soccer fields were built, there was an issue about how close we could go to those houses.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's that's something that we just have to make sure that we're clear on.
The property line from the soccer field to the house is about 120 feet.
Yeah, but there was an agreement with, if I recall, we couldn't, because when we built those soccer fields, that's the furthest we could go because of the buffer that was
Oh,
required.
okay.
So I don't know where that is or what that was, but I know we had to stop at that point. But, there's just a couple concerns to make sure, we really need to look in from a legal standpoint, can we put them there?
Yeah.
Right.
And then if you put lights there, what's the residents gonna do on the other side? Are they gonna require that wall, come back for that wall? Cause they waived off it, but I don't know, and I don't know if they can come back to get it. That's the
Yeah.
only, just a couple things, knowing
Well,
the
we-
history of this thing, so.
For sure need to look into that.
I don't want to complicate this presentation at all, but let me address that a little bit. It makes it a little more complicated, but our first choice would be to let the soccer field have access to that and flip-flop, and for our northernmost pickleball to go down and take the southern part of the soccer field. Cuts out some of their territory. I don't know how much they need it.
What do you mean? You can't, they fill that thing up with fields during the season. so-
Oh, yeah.
The whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's like
Every Saturday and most
probably
weekdays.
6 fields there.
Well, they're not laid out. Who knows? Somebody said they're.
I mean, just speaking from, watching my kids play there, they have probably about 6 fields going. They're the little ones, so they're not full soccer fields.
Right.
And they have practice 4 or 5 days a week and games every
Yeah.
Saturday. They
Yeah,
used
it's
to have
currently
a
off-season
fall
now,
and
so
spring.
so I
They still
couldn't
do. They have a fall and spring still.
So they,
And it's
I'm not
primarily,
sure about the
they
summer.
have practice during the week, but primarily Saturdays is when they're, it's 5 or 6 games at a time. that They run through their part of the days.
It's very fair to say that we are not in the least married to be there. But I will say again, it is the best spot.
What would be your second choice?
From the city or generally speaking?
Well, we wanna keep you in the city.
Okay.
What'd you think?
About the Nance Escort.
Yeah, I don't think it'll fit 8.
It's too soon.
I'd like to get them over by the circle. North over by Park there.
Councilman, I think our problem is, and Mayor Shoup was graceful enough to spend some time with us and look, boy, it's hard to find City of Sebring property that will meet the requirements. It's tough. I've spent quite a bit of time looking on the map and trying to find other places. There are some that kind of, like, to keep it in the city property. Well,
How big is that?
everything else would be a poor second.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So, more on that? More? Because.
And I think, And I agree, it's a great place to have it. I think there's just some issues that we gotta make sure that we
Yeah,
cover.
we gotta check.
And I didn't even know about, is Swift Mud gonna have to be involved since you're paving some of that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because the way they've oriented it is just outside the retention area
Right.
for the Y.
Right.
So yes, they would require what kind of
I don't think it's gonna be
engineering
much retention.
site plan.
And you had that whole 50-foot buffer you could probably use too for that.
Mhm.
But, you know, I mean, the ultimate that I would think is if we had a parcel big enough to where you're just not constrained to 8 courts.
Yeah.
This thing could grow into a
Right.
ton
I-
of boredom.
Absolutely.
I really like
You
that
know,
idea.
to a complex where, you know, you've got an investment, and I don't know if we could, you know, I'd love to have it in the city. We don't have a
Mhm.
spot that's bigger than Max Long unless we take a piece of the golf course or something
Mhm.
like that, but that might not go over very big either, but.
We would accept that.
But which hole do you want? That's what we
Yeah.
have to know.
I
So
think we'd
we'll
have
make
a
it
full
We'll make it
group
a
of people
17,
here.
we'll make it a 17-hole golf course, but.
What
Yeah.
about that property behind the, old power plant? There's a
Okay,
little
so I'll-
property back there.
But I mean, this is just, you know, kind of moving forward, but it'd be nice to have an area we could grow this complex instead of having
Mhm.
8 courts here and then all of a sudden we get this great idea to put 16 courts here and 8
Yeah.
courts here where we
Yeah.
could have a nice facility where, I mean, it would be a moneymaker then. You know,
Absolutely.
A tournament,
Behind
you could
the
really
power plant.
encourage tournaments
Where
to
they
come
would
to
do it,
town.
don't
I mean,
have-
we have
Yes.
Yeah,
16
and-
courts or whatever, I mean,
Well,
And
so.
all the attendance is based
well,
on the
that-
number of courts. In Naples, was that where they
Cypress
had the
and
US
avocado,
Open
that's
in
not really
Naples?
there.
84 courts?
I'm not sure.
Roughly 84 courts, all of them filled all day
Mhm.
long.
Yeah.
Huge tournament, 20,000 entrants or something like that.
Mhm.
They made money.
So that'd be kind of nice if we could find a spot.
I'm with you, 100%.
What about the property behind the old power plant? How big is that piece of property?
Dog park area?
Where they talked about the dog park?
It's potential.
That would be, closer to downtown.
Yeah, that's, you're talking about where the Quonset hut is up there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
At that lot, that, you know, we realized was too expensive.
Oh, yeah.
It's there.
If we want restaurants and stuff to survive and thrive in the downtown area,
We
this
need to
would
bring
be
stuff
ideal
downtown.
or something like that.
And that's closer to downtown.
Yeah, and I mean, they would pop from there.
And
Otherwise,
there's
they're going
plenty
to
of,
restaurants on
plenty
27.
of space for parking.
Appears
Pardon?
big enough?
Plenty of space for parking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It appears big enough. Yeah. I wasn't aware of it. So if we stay with, the Max Long Park, we'd like to get this project off the ground. We got everything in place. We've got money. Said that again. We've got the enthusiasm. You can see we've got some people here tonight that all play. They came to support this project. They want it to happen. We've got the know-how. There are a lot of us involved in construction, understand it. We have all the tools we need to make this happen. We just need a place to put this, an acceptable place. And so, first-class facility, first-class property, we can make it happen. We think Max Long is a good facility. We hope that you'll think the same thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that a picture off the parkway there? Scott?
Yeah.
So, it seems that we need to look into some of this stuff before we make a decision.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And it may not be a bad idea to pursue some other optional places. Of course, one of the aspects of Max Long is the fact that there are bathrooms there already. So,
Well, you have infrastructure there,
yeah,
which is,
so
I mean,
it-
and you
it-
do.
it does fit.
I still think you're gonna have a hell of a parking problem at some times.
Yeah.
But you know, you did have the bathrooms,
Yeah.
it's a recreational, you know, this spot here, if you put the courts in, where are you gonna park?
Yeah.
You know, if you get, I don't know, how many people you said you could have in a tournament for 8 courts?
200.
Yeah.
I mean, even at 2 people a car, that's 100 cars.
That's 100 cars.
So-
You'd have
That's
to,
what we figured.
and
But-
then you'd have to do the parking, you'd have to do everything else.
But I like your thought about thinking about the possibility of
Expansion.
growth. And it's gonna be
Yeah.
difficult to do at Max Long Field.
Yeah.
So, I think collectively, we seem to be on board with this.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah.
And I really want to encourage you to move forward with it, whether it's this as a primary location is your number one choice, or if we could possibly, and maybe you can even look and see if we can find an equal or better location closer to the city. And maybe we can't, and maybe we just go with this, but not, and I don't mean to drag it out, but.
Well, irregardless, we can't vote on this because there's too many unknowns. Swift mud, things of that nature we need to pursue.
Buffer, YMCA.
So there's
So
some
let's-
legalities we have to
let's-
look into. Yeah.
So Dave, we'll have staff take care of that, and, okay.
So that's great, and I'd like to come play with y'all.
We've already got one councilman that we play with, and I
Yeah.
think we're probably gonna restrict.
Yeah, so I started playing.
Especially how he plays, is that what you're saying?
Just based on his skill.
So, I challenge any of you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the old
Okay.
racquetball
Yeah.
player coming back out.
So I have to tell you,
I will
played,
take that challenge.
I played racquetball frequently, and I felt as though it would give me an edge up on this game. And when I went out there, there were very elderly ladies tearing me up. So, but it is great fun.
They did that in racquetball.
Well,
too.
that's true.
Okay.
So the exuberance of the people playing, it's slammed. There's people there at eight in the morning. It's full, and it's addictive. So I'm 100% with them, and I think it'd be it'd be a boon to the quality of life in the city of Sebring if we did this.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, moving along, do we have any business from the audience? No business from the audience. City attorney?
Nothing further. Thank you.
City administrator?
Yes, sir, a couple things. One, I'd just like to mention that the county did pass an interlocal agreement that would be between the city and the county today for provision of fire services on the new 27, or newly annexed 27 corridor. That also included some provision of residential solid waste, specifically to the mobile home, a couple of the mobile home parks. Secondly, I'd like to request a shade meeting for Monday night. I know that I'd spoken to some of you earlier in reference to a time of around 5:30. I would like our finance director to be there, and she can't be there any earlier than 6, and she'll probably be pushing it to get there by 6. But this would be a law enforcement bargaining unit shade meeting.
Okay.
So Monday the 21st, this coming Monday. That's correct.
At 6? or
At
five?
6.
At 6.
Okay. You got that, Kurt? Okay.
Yep.
6 o'clock, Monday. It's a date.
Thank you.
Anything else? Nope.